Hey, this is Meredith Powell, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Thrive. Everything that you need to know to turn all of this uncertainty into your competitive advantage. I am hanging out here with the legendary Anthony Iannarino. How you doing today, Anthony?
Don't I have to die to be a legend? Like, can I
No,
still be a
not these
living
days.
legend or
A
something like
living
that?
legend.
Okay, good.
How about that? But
That's
you
good.
are the master. I mean, really, when it comes to sales, you are truly one of the leaders in the field.
One of many, right?
Yeah. I'm Meredith Powell. I'm hanging out here today at the Gaylord in Nashville, Tennessee. Anthony is in his really cool office in Columbus, Ohio. And Anthony, for those, a couple of people maybe watching us that don't know you, tell us a little bit. I'm really curious. I mean, I don't even know your story. How did you get into sales?
Not without a lot of reluctance. Well, the first time I ever made cold calls, I was 15 years old, and
Wow.
and I was making calls to get people to do a bike-a-thon for charity, and I did that for maybe 2 months.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of 2 months, I got a job that was not cold calling, which was very attractive to me. I was 15 years old and I went to work at a skating rink where I was surrounded by 15-year-old people. So that was a better deal for me. When I quit, though, the company called me back and they said, "You have to come back." And I said, "Oh, well, I already got another job." And they said, "You're the only person that's got any bike-a-thons running anywhere in the country." I had two, which was two more than the rest of the whole company. Like nobody got one, but I got two at that time, but I still wouldn't come back. I joined my family's business in staffing. And I was just told at the time, when you're not busy, call people and see if they need any help. So that's what I
Right.
did. I didn't know I was cold calling. I didn't know it was sales. I was just told, do this. And I did it because that was my nature, is to just, if somebody needs something done, I'll do it. I went to California to front a hair metal band in
Okay.
true story in 1990. And I was there for a few years. And I went to work for a big staffing company. And while I was there, I was just doing what I knew I was supposed to do. I'm supposed to interview people, place them on jobs. If I don't have anything to do, call people and see if they want to talk about getting some help. And at one point, my manager showed up and he said, "How did you get all these clients?" He's got this report. And I said, "Oh, it's really easy. I just call some people and I ask them if I can have a meeting and they say yes. And some say no, but I call those back later on. And when I sit down, we talk about what they need and then they sign a contract and they're my clients." And he said, "What you said was beautiful. I love that. I want you to cut your hair and become a salesperson." And I thought, that's the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. And how dare you think that I could ever be a salesperson? That was my reaction. And then I had to remind him, I'm not in a rock and roll band. I'm in a hair metal band. So hair was part of the thing. Eventually, I cut it up to here and I wore it in a ponytail and I wore a suit. And I became a terrible salesperson like most people, because instead of trying to help people, I was trying to actually get them to do something.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way. So the more you push on something like that, the more you're pushing somebody away, right? And I had a great mentor, and he eventually explained to me, none of this has anything to do with you. Like, none of it. Like,
Right.
you're just
Great
there.
advice.
You're just there to help them. That's it. Like, don't talk about anything. And he went on a call with me. We had this binder, 84 pages. And he sat next to me while I read all 84 pages to this poor woman who was probably still in a coma. You know, I started on the first page 50 years earlier than the time I was talking to this person. And it was awful. But eventually I realized, like, the best thing to do is just give up and just don't even need the deal. Just try to have a really good conversation. And that worked very well for me. And then I became a full-time salesperson after that. And I would never, ever go back into operations. Like, it was so good for me. I enjoyed every part of it. I still do.
What I love about what you're saying is, and I really hope the audience is picking it up, is some of the little things I picked up from what you were saying. None of this has anything to do with you. Just call people and see if you can help them. And don't feel like you're there to push a product or a service. Where do you think that sales got so derailed And that, I always think about the fact, because I hated to sell too when I got started, because it felt like pushing things on people. But when you back up and you really understand sales, it's really none of that. Why do you think we went down the wrong track with it?
Well, I think it started like more than 100 years ago. It's probably 100 years old when we decided that the best thing that we could do would be to try to build credibility by talking about our company and then telling people that we have really good customers that look like them, and then telling them that we have these products and services. And that was sort of all me oriented, and there was still information disparity at that time, but the disparity was being used like, don't tell the client the whole truth, you need them to buy. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where the bad reputation for salespeople started. It started a very long time ago. Then we got to Sandler for that's a good example. They're
Yeah.
55 years old, and they have a fear-based thing. So their structure is fear-based. It's don't do any free consulting. They call that don't drop your candy on the lobby floor, like, which means don't give it away. But if you're not being consultative right now and you're not giving your advice and your recommendation and helping people make good decisions for their business, you don't understand consultative selling at all. Like, you don't even get it. Like, it's all advice and recommendations. That's the whole thing. That's what you're doing. You're telling somebody how to get a better result and you're teaching them how to do that. Then we got to spin selling, which I think is that combined with new solution selling and deciding everybody's going to have the same process and we're going to do it the same way. So here's what I can tell you, Meredith. Everybody's trying to differentiate by having the exact same conversation as their competitors. Let me tell you about my company.
That's great.
Legendary CEO, charismatic, you'll love him. Here's our board of directors or our investors. Here's what our let's call it a trophy case, right? So we have this trophy case of all these logos of the people that we've done work with. And then we ask you what's keeping you up at night. And you have to wonder what the other person is thinking when you say, like, well, what are your problems? Like, you called me, you asked me for a meeting, you showed up here, and you don't have any idea why you showed up here. You're trying to find a problem. So I try to explain this to people by saying, what did you want them to say? Like, what if they said, Meredith, listen, we have a very big problem. Our parking lot's too small for the number of people that we have to park here, and we really don't like our coffee filters. Like, I can't help you with any of those things. Like, it's a narrow set of problems that you solve, and you know all of them already. So instead of doing that, you should be telling the client why they have their problem. And your show here, Thrive, is about uncertainty. And the reason that people struggle to make decision is because they are plagued by uncertainty, and they need somebody to come in and be a sense maker and help them figure out, like, what should I know? What's important for me to understand? Help me understand how this root cause is working in my business. When you do that, you have a very different, a very, very different experience for the client. So the way that I would say this is salesperson A does that pattern that I just spoke about. 2 days later, salesperson B comes in and they do the same exact thing in the same exact order. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
even change the order. And then if we would go to that poor person who had to sit through that, we would say, what was the difference between salesperson A and B? And they'll say salesperson A was a little bit taller and had lighter hair. Like, I don't know. Like, there's no difference. They can't tell. And so the reason that I think that closing rates and quota attainment is plummeting is because we keep doing the same thing, because we've just done it for so long. And many sales organizations just aren't willing to give it up and do something better.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that you think of sales professionals as really innovative and really cutting edge, but we're people that get really stuck in our ways. I heard a CEO say one time, which I've loved this quote and I've used it so many times, is I don't need a sales professional who comes in and asks me what keeps me up at night. I need somebody who's going to come in, tell me what's keeping me up at night, and help me get a good night's sleep, which is exactly what you're talking about. So,
Yeah.
is all of this where your book, Elite Sales Strategies, came about?
Yeah. And, at Outbound
Mhm.
in what year was it? 2021? Yeah,
Yeah.
2021, we were able to have it. So we had that. And I had the one up keynote that I did. And I was petrified to give it because of just the concept of talking about what it means to be one up and what it means to be one down. I told Jeb, people might run out of the room. I don't really know what's going to happen. Like when you start talking about one up, it's like one upmanship.
Right.
And that's where it would be like me just trying to embarrass you and say, Meridith, did I meet you at Columbia when I was getting my MBA in 1996? And you're like, no, I didn't go to Columbia. That's just being rude to another human being. But that's not really what the concept started as. The concept starts as somebody has more knowledge and experience. And you hope that that's true if you need help. You hope
Right.
that they know more than you. And so somebody who is one down lacks the knowledge and the experience of the other person. The person that's one up has got deep experience like you have, like I have, like the people listening to this. They've been in their vertical for a long time. They know way more than their customer. Now, this idea of information disparity, people are like, well, now that there's the internet, people are out and researching. So if you were to take a person, Meridith, under your wing, okay, and they have never spoken on stage before, how far down are they compared to your experience speaking all the time? Now, they could go read anything that you wrote. They could look up all of the places that you've spoke. They can look at all of these things. They'll find them on your website. It's not hard to do. But without the experience, they have no idea, right? They have no idea. So it's something about having the knowledge and the experience and then delivering. So you've delivered, and I've seen you deliver because you've been on the stage at Outbound multiple times, and you're going to be back there. And I've even referred you to a client because I knew that they were going to be happy. Like, I know they're going to like you. It's going to be good. But the person who's one down doesn't always recognize that they're one down. They sometimes think, well, I bought this before. Yeah, but their assumptions are outdated, or there's misconceptions, or they're not understanding what factors have changed and how they need to weigh them now because it's a different world. So the person that's one up is responsible for transferring all that to the person that's one down so that they don't have to be one down when they make that decision. So this is my version of consultative selling.
I love that, Anthony, because I love the whole concept, because I feel like the value we bring to our customers as sales professionals. I mean, think about anybody you sell to who's a CEO, whether it's a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company or they're running a small mom and pop operation. It's a lot of work with a lot on your plate, dealing with a lot of things. And I always tell sales professionals, it is not their job to understand all the products and services we sell, or more importantly, all the ways that our products and services can solve their problems. Their job is to know what their problems are. So they're, to your language, they're one down. And they're like, and as you said, they're not less, they're not anything, because they're dealing with all this other stuff over here.
Yeah.
Our job is to come in and go, oh, okay, I hear everything you've got on your plate. I got this. Here's the things that you can do to turn those into opportunities, and I'm going to handle these things for you. And they're hiring you, I think, this much for the product, this much for the expertise.
Right. That's right. It's really interesting to me that people think, well, all you have to do is elicit the problem and the pain because that's what compels them to change. And then when I ask a client, like, how long have you been suffering with this? Just about 2 years. Like, well, the problem and pain must not be that compelling. What I think it takes, and I'm going to just riff on your turning uncertainty into your competitive advantage, because it is right now. I don't know that people understand that you're saying that the way that you're saying it, but it is very literal. This is an advantage for you.
Yes.
Because they have lived with this problem, and it takes a salesperson to help them make sense and prioritize it before they change it. Which is why when you ask people, how long have you been struggling with this issue? And they go 18 months. And you're like, 18 months, that's a long time. But you just described, they're overwhelmed. They're dealing with their whole company. It's difficult for them to prioritize. People do workarounds, and they live with it. And so we have to go in and do this work where we sit next to them and say, let's look at it this way. Here's why you feel uncertain. Here's what is working right now. Here's the steps that people are taking to be successful. You have to do that work so that you can get them to move forward.
So tell us a little bit more about the book. Was elite sales strategies just something you had in your mind for a long time? And what was the concept? How did you come up with them? Give us a little bit of background and tell us a little bit more about the book.
I wish it worked anything like you just described. It doesn't work that way for me. I write 1,000 words every day when I wake up.
Hmm.
And over time, stuff starts to pile up. And I notice what people resonate with and say, this is interesting to me, or this is useful, or this is helpful. But in this particular case, I just wanted to deliver new content at Outbound. So I took the content that I thought was going to be most helpful, and that was the concept of being one up.
Right.
So I brought that, and then I brought 10 strategies, one up, and then 9 more strategies. And this is the first time you will know what this means. Other people will not. We have cameras on you when you're speaking at Outbound.
Right.
You've got videos, and there's multiple videos of you, different cameras and all that stuff. There's 2 cameras on me that I can watch me deliver my keynote as many times as I want to. It's mine. I have no interest in that. What happened to me is I was talking about the nature of being one up, and this story about going to Mount Everest and having a Sherpa tell me to throw away my altitude sickness medicine because he knew I was allergic to it, even though my doctor had given it to me. And I'm watching people sort of just go like this. They're just like, boom. I'm watching their faces, and they're smiling, and they're getting this concept, and I notice, like, I've not seen anything sort of wash over an audience quite like that did. And at some point I realized that was really helpful. And then I had people coming up afterwards going like, that was super helpful. Daryl Amy came up. I mean, he practically kidnapped me. He's like, that is the best thing anybody's ever done. And, so I'm getting all this feedback. And then Jeb's acquisition editor from Wiley accosted me and said, we need to do a book. And I'm like,
Great.
let's do this book. And so we did that book.
Yeah.
So that was it. And I've had the content, some part of it, for a long time, mostly because it's my experience of teaching people, how to deliver insights and how to differentiate in a way that's different than most people have been taught.
So as we look on the horizon, I mean, you brought up the topic of thriving in uncertainty, and it's like, I feel that we share a passion for this and helping people understand that the obstacles in front of them are going to lead them. That is what you want, because that's your breakout. That's where you're going to find, that's where you're going to get the leg up on the competition if you view it correctly. A year ago, we were all kind of worried about COVID and maybe a few supply chain issues, and the employee situation was bubbling up. But now it seems like uncertainty's gone on steroids. I mean, every time you turn around, it's another. What do you see coming down the pipe as far as sales goes in the next few months as we look at the economy tightening, as inflation, depending on who you talk to, we're either experiencing it, or we're not. It doesn't really look like the supply chain is going to loosen much for some industries. Where do you feel like sales professionals' heads are, and what do they need to be focused on? Or anybody who sells in a company, for that matter.
I've been through 4 of these in my life. So I've been through 4, so I know this. What I would tell you is that my family owns staffing businesses. There's 11.5 million open jobs in the United States. Wages have gone up. Now they're giving those wage increases back up because of gas and food and all these other things. But this isn't like a 2008. This isn't going to be that kind of recession.
Right.
We don't have any structural problems other than the Fed printed about $7 trillion, and it's still flush and it's still moving around in the system. But when you do that much, you're going to get inflation. And so that's where we are. And I don't even think you're going to hear the word recession. I'll be surprised if you do. It'll be this week if you do, but I don't think you're going to. I actually am on the Business Advisory Council for the Cleveland Federal Reserve. And when you take out inventories because of supply chain issues, we're not in a recession. And I don't think they're going to say we're in a recession. Now, we might be in one in the future, but I don't think this is one that's going to look like one that we recognize. The closest I would think, let me say this, in 2008, I had 1,500 temporary employees working. On October 1st, one day later, from September 30th to the 1st, I had 750. Everybody got laid off.
Wow.
We're not seeing that.
Yeah.
So you can see some slowing down of hiring, especially in tech companies, especially ones with bad models that don't make profit. But we're not seeing that anywhere else. So the consumer's complaining, they're unhappy. But when you look at the statistics on do they have money, are they spending that money? The answer is yes. 70% of our economy is consumer spending. People don't know that. They think because big companies are buying all this stuff, you can't match 335 million people buying everything that they need. Like you can't match it. There's too many of us. So I think that this is going to be a one that we're going to be able to live through easier than the ones in the past. I'm knocking on wood, and I'm hoping that what I'm saying is true. But I wouldn't be surprised if they don't call this a recession right now.
Hmm.
But the Fed only does two things: try to have full employment and try to have inflation between 2 and 3. That's the only two things they're responsible for. So the labor force is good, even though we have too many jobs and not enough people. And I can tell you why that is too, if you want to know.
I do.
In 2021, 21% of adult Americans did not have sex. The number of babies was 54 out of every 1,000 women. So we have what's called a demographic drought. There's not enough
Right.
people here. Like we just don't have enough people for these jobs. And the ones that we do aren't qualified for a lot of the jobs that are available right now. So that's part of our problem. This is livable though, and a salesperson probably thinks, well, it's going to be really hard because there's a recession. People will tighten up, but there are always deals. Like I've won some of the largest accounts I've ever won, multi-million-dollar clients in a recession because they needed better results and they understood the difference between price and cost.
Yeah.
And by saving them cost, we were able to displace our competitors. So if you want to do the right thing in a recession, here's what I would say: do the right thing in the right way at the right time. Just keep doing it. It never fails. There's no reason to ever give up, to stop, to believe that there's no deals. There are deals. Somebody's going to get them. I hope it's you.
Yeah. I think I did an interview this morning and I said, I think that there's greater opportunity in the middle of a recession for a couple of reasons, or a challenging economy or whatever you want to label it. And I think the reasons is number one, the herd thins. You don't have as many competitors because people get in their mind that they pull back. They think, well, people aren't going to buy. I'm not going to bug them. Add to that, your customers need you more than they needed you before. They're trying to figure out how they navigate what's in front of them. And you have the answers to that.
That's what it means to be consultative. Like it means that I'm going to help you make decisions for your business.
Yeah.
But when you say, I've got a really good solution, you should buy it, that's not very consultative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have an interesting question up here. Anthony's book is out and I've read it, and he doesn't address this topic specifically, but it's an interesting question because, here as we're talking about the economy and we're talking about things, we do have a divide between the haves and the have-nots. I mean, whether you say we're having a recession or whether they decide we're not having a recession or whatever we're going through, the divide of the haves and the have-nots is getting bigger. And he says here, with knowledge and experience in the sales world, what do you think about that, in the sense that, I see younger people coming into the sales world. I see, people with deep experience leaving the sales world. Where do you think we are from a knowledge and expertise of building those next generations of sales leaders?
I can't read the name. Is it Rommel?
Yes.
Okay, Rommel, I want to make sure I got your name right.
Macintosh.
I believe that you're right. There will be haves and have-nots in the future, and the have-nots will have very, very little in sales. If they're not consultative, if they don't look and sound like a trusted advisor, if they're not capable of covering the gaps in the client's knowledge and experience, they are not going to be useful at all. That's actually what's happening right now. Let me tell you about my company. What did I learn? Nothing. Let me tell you about our products. What did I learn? Nothing. Show me these logos. I learned nothing, except for you're proud of your trophy case. I didn't learn anything. If you can't cover my gap as a salesperson and I'm an executive, I'll find somebody else. There's a lot of people who will care enough to do that. And if you want to go as far back as I've been able to trace this idea, go to the Bible and just read any part where there is a king or a pharaoh. And what do they do when they get in trouble? They get an advisor to come in and help them make good decisions. So this is thousands and thousands of years old, what I'm talking about. This isn't new. There's nothing new about being consultative. There's nothing new about being one up. Somebody who has greater experience and knowledge and sitting across from somebody who doesn't is always going to be one up. So if you want to be one up, then the right thing to do is to start organizing your strategies around this information disparity and teaching the client how to make a decision and then helping them get the very best results that they're capable of getting.
Yeah. It's hard to believe, but we're pretty much to the end of this podcast. I want to talk a minute about Outbound. Tell the audience what it is, how they find out about it, how they get involved, and why they don't want to miss it.
They don't want to miss it because you're going to be there.
That's right. I don't ever miss it.
And I'm going to be there, and Jeb Blunt's going to be there, and there's a whole bunch of us that are going to be there. It is, and I'll let you argue with me if you want to. It is arguably the very best sales conference on earth, and it's for a number of reasons. We teach, and we don't pitch from the stage. So this is just pure development. Like, we're giving you the best ideas and how to think about sales. There's a no pitch rule, so none of the sponsors are going to walk up on stage and pitch you. And you are going to have more fun than you thought you were ever going to have at a sales conference. There's no doubt about that. It's a very high energy conference. If you have people that you care about, like Meridith, and you're part of her community, you will be able to walk up to her and talk to her, and she will not run to a green room or anything like that. She'll be right there. And we're all going to be right there. Nobody hides. Am I telling the truth? You're nodding in agreement.
Yeah. No. I mean, it is, the conference is, Mark Hunter and I were just talking about this yesterday. The conference is electric. First of all, there is no wasted time. It is just sales information after sales information after sales information. But you're right. The beauty of it is you not only have, you and Jeb are so selective about what gets on that stage and who gets to talk and the information they shared. It goes through a vetting process. But then on top of it, you're engaging with anybody you want to engage with. I think of the number of times I've seen speakers on stage and I think, oh my gosh, that was fabulous, but I've got a couple of other questions and I don't ever see them again. But this is really different. We're down there, we're in the audience because I want to learn from the other speakers that are on the Engage. So I'm down in the audience taking notes as well.
I think we're going to put all of us very close to the front.
Yeah.
Because we do. We learn from each other so much, like when we're together like that. Anyway, I will tell you, if you're an individual, it's worth taking the time to go there. Even if you just do the 2 main stage days and you don't stay for the 3rd day. If you have a team, here's what I would say. If you have a team and you send us your team, and I'm talking about me, I'm talking about Jeb, I'm talking about Meredith, all the people that are going to be on the stage, you're going to give them a year's worth of development in 3 days. Like in
Absolutely.
3 days, you'll get a year's. One of the things that we say is you're going to need a bigger notebook. Yeah. Like you're going to be furiously taking notes. And the one thing that I always tell people is prioritize. Pick 3 things. You're going to own this content for a long time, but just pick the 3 things that are going to give you the most help. And it won't take long for you to figure that out.
The virtual sales training is the 19th through the 20th, and we're at the Georgia World Congress Center, September 21st through 23rd. So, if you're somewhere in the world and can't make it to Atlanta, Georgia, not a problem. You can join us virtually. But if you can get to Atlanta, which is an easy flight, you can join us live and in person. Anthony, tell everybody how they find out about you, how they find out about elite sales strategies. And last question, after that is, what's your greatest piece of advice for anybody who is looking to thrive in uncertainty?
Okay, so start with the questions again. You gave me too many.
Yes, I know.
Find me thesalesblog.com or LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me. If you go to the blog, you'll see a little banner across the top. You can click there to order the book. When you do that, you send me a receipt, and I'm going to send you a workbook so that you can do some of the work on your own. And LinkedIn is another great place to find me. How do you deal with uncertainty? The first thing is, Meredith, I have to say, I've studied with two Zen masters.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, if you've ever heard anybody say, don't worry about the things that are outside of your control and work on the things that are inside your control, that's probably a good summation. Like
Yeah.
if there's going to be a recession, there's not anything you can do about it. So you can be unhappy about it. You can complain about it. You can gripe about it to people who want to listen to that kind of thing, but it's not going to change the state. So the only thing that you can do is say, I'm not one to say that the only way to get better results is activity, but when everybody else gives up, you should get super active. Like you want a
That's good
competitive
advice.
advantage. When people are like, oh, no one's going to buy, good, I'll go call on those clients for you. That's fine.
Oh, Anthony, I named my business Motion First. And the reason I named it Motion First, I went for years trying to figure out what to name my business. And when I came on that, I felt it because I believe exactly what you're saying. We worry so much about the end result. We worry so much about what we can't control. Activity is going to produce a result. Even if the result is, I just figured out I was going the wrong way. Now I need to go this direction. You wouldn't have figured that out had you not been moving. I mean, I
That's
just
true.
can't.
Yeah.
Just cannot agree more.
Yeah.
You
You
have
just
been,
keep moving
yes,
and adjust, right?
and moving and adjust. You have been amazing. I want to do this live again from Outbound. Get you on, get Jeb on, get Victor on, Mark on, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. You are amazing. All of your books. But for right now, Elite Sales Strategies is the one we're talking about. I mean, I do not know anybody more cerebral and intellectual and effective when it comes to sales truly than you are. And it's been a real honor to have you on here today. So I want to thank our audience again for joining us for another episode of Thrive. And together we are going to turn all of this uncertainty into your major competitive advantage.